Welcome to Wednesday Webinar Live by Disruptive Focus and Virtua. In today's session, we are going to explore about Web3 and what it means to brands and businesses. Some quick guidelines before we start. This is a 15 to 20 minute live session. After that, there will be a Q&A session for about 10 minutes. If you have any questions, please type them into the comment section. In case you experience any technical issues, please check your internet connections and refresh your browsers. I'm very delighted to introduce our Web3 expert panelists, joining us from Dubai, London, and Miami, starting with Jawad Ashraf. He is the CEO and co-founder of Virtua, an industry leader in NFTs, blockchain, and the metaverse. In a career spanning decades, Jawad has been at the forefront of innovation in emerging technology. Having pioneered software development in industry and enterprise, he has been driving force in the early adoption of progressive technology. Next panelist is Timothy Magnell. He is the CEO and founder of Capital Block, Europe's leading Web3 consultancy dedicated to sports and entertainment. He supports in planning comprehensive strategies, covering all areas from media planning, utility, tokenomics, and execution. Then we have Alex Amsel. He is an award-winning game developer, investor, and blockchain expert. He is also the founder of Soulcast, an NFT remixing platform, exploring the evolution of NFTs into a dynamic art form, focusing on community-created content. And finally, Greg Concilio. He has spent 25 years building and operating digital businesses globally, with experience in e-commerce, subscription, media, loyalty and rewards platforms, live events, music, and sport. He founded Block Party in 2017 and co-founded Moonwalk in 2020. Today's session will be moderated by Rory Stewart Richardson. He leads the commercial strategy for Virtua and spent 14 years pulling together commercial partnerships. Rory is passionate about sports, entertainment, and where the world of Web3 is going. And now I'll hand you over to Rory. Take it away.
Cheers, Stella. And good afternoon, good morning, and good evening to some of you. And welcome to Virtua's short and sharp webinar explaining what the world of Web3 entails, the benefits, and what is to be avoided. As you'll see, and as just been sort of kind of introduced, we have a panel of experts here at your beckoning call to answer any questions you do have. So do raise your hand or write in the comment sector any questions you do have. So on to why we're here, the metaverse, the Web3 space. A fantastic new space, but for those who are unsure of it, I'm going to ask each one of you just your sort of definition of the metaverse. Why would a consumer sort of want to engage in this new space? So Jawad, I'll let you sort of kind of kick off with that.
I mean, everyone's going to give you a different definition of metaverse, I'm sure, right? But effectively, to me, the metaverse is the sort of intersection of where Web 2 has evolved to. So like Web 1 was like read and quite static. Web 2 was like more read, write, and this Web 3 is more about trust, verifiability, and decentralization. And a metaverse is like the evolution of an immersive world where now, instead of everything being a flat piece of glass where you're interacting with that way, there's more depth to it, interaction to it. It's like an evolution and intersection of gaming and social, but with ownership and with assets. So think of it as a video game where you own your stuff, but it's more than a video game. It's like a parallel to reality. So when you talk about reality, it's reality for a lot of people now is a combination of what's happening on their devices and what's around them. And a metaverse is another form of reality where it's like it will become the next evolution of the web. It's where you go, it's where you can interact, but with more of like a 3D immersive environment, even if it's potentially running on a flat piece of glass to start with and not VR. But it's where you can do many things that you can do in the day-to-day world, as well as the things that you can do in the web, that are all coming together as well. So it's a bit of a smooshy thing, but like it just means ownership. It means being in that environment and having the ability to own and create and have an economy and be part of it and not be part of the corporate infrastructure. A lot of Web3 is about decentralization, trust, and not being accountable to large organizations. That's the movement, really. That's my sort of definition of it.
And in one sentence, why would a consumer decide to engage with their favorite brands in this space?
You know, it's more a case of, I think consumers are comfortable with how they interact with a brand. With more interactivity, you're going to bring a different type of consumer to the brand, one who's actually looking for more. And that type of consumer, the Gen Z, who at the moment has this income, but is going to elevate that over the next few years, they want more than just the sort of brand experiences they have. They want to have more of a dialogue, and they want to get more out of the engagement. And I think if brands want to engage with the next generation, that's really what their focus should be. And the mass market will just consume it as it gets easier to use, because convenience is king when it comes to mass market with everything. I don't know if that was one
sentence. Tim, what is the metaverse to you? And just sort of kind of building on Jawad's answer, sort of why would a consumer sort of go to that space?
It's hard to not say a lot of things that Jawad has just said, but I think in terms of the metaverse and where we see it going and the reason that we think it's vitally important is it allows us to very much expand our engagement with the consumers from said brand or said sports team or whatever it may be. It allows us as a consumer to really develop into a world and connect with a brand on a much deeper level. And it also allows our vision to not be limited by a centralized source or a centralized system, be it LinkedIn, Facebook, whoever may be the controlling party that we're very used to using in terms of engaging and connecting with other people. I think the importance of the metaverse is that we can connect through our own decisions and through purchasing assets and NFTs or Web3 products or whatever it may be within these metaverses. So I think to actually take a kind of a little bit of a step back, the metaverse is whatever you want it to be by developing your Web3 strategy that will start potentially with NFTs. So it's connecting that journey of a centralized, say, Web2 system from, let's say, a sports club of that kind of traditional model all the way through to the metaverse in terms of allowing a sports club to create and engage with sports fans around the world, to create replica stadiums, to create broadcasting opportunities for fans. So the metaverse for me is allowing people to really create their own journey by purchasing potentially products, by having experiences, and then connecting with them all over the world. So it kind of breaks down barriers. It connects us all together. That's what the metaverse is for me in Capital Block.
Awesome. Now, Alex, are we running with Silly Tuna or Alex?
You can just go with Alex. It's fine.
What's the metaverse to you and sort of the experience you've had to date in it? And again, if there's any other additional angles that you can bring to it as to why a consumer would sort of kind of want to join this space, it'd be great to hear your thoughts.
I think it's like an evolution. I mean, maybe even a revolution of just how we're doing things, because Web2 has always put consumers as I would say the wronged party. So the world is built around Facebook or WhatsApp or LinkedIn or whatever, and you connect to them and they own all your data and they're in control. And they're all heavily disconnected. When okay, there are apps that you hook your Google account with your Facebook account or Apple or whatever, well, they're really connecting the centralized parties and not connected to you. Web3, if you step away from everything, and Web3 and the metaverse are very sort of related for me. It puts users at the center of everything. So it's my stuff, it's my data, it's my identity. And whether I'm an avatar walking through a game, like whether it's like Fortnite or a 3D world or Terra Virtua, or I'm a shopper or or I'm listening to music, or I'm buying and selling art as NFTs, whatever it happens to be. It's my stuff. It's my identity. I'm at the center, and I can connect myself to Facebook, and I can connect myself to WhatsApp, and I can connect myself to Terra Virtua, and I can take my avatar and my ownership of whatever happens to be, and my information wherever I want to be. So it just makes an awful lot more sense. We couldn't really do it before. There was no safe way to do it. Whereas now, for me, the metaverse is something where it's a user-centric thing, not a big, massive company-centric thing. They will still exist and they will still be powerful, but it just changes the balance a bit. A metaverse is, people always just imagine it's, I'm just walking in this 3D world and that's where I'm interacting and socializing and shopping and playing. And yes, there'll be that for a subset of people, and that would be great, but it already exists. Just it exists in this centralized Web 2 paradigm where I'm going somewhere else. It's not me. It's just that's my bit over there. What the metaverse will do for these sort of more 3D environments and 2D environments is, again, it's focused on me. My avatar goes with me where I want it to go. I can reuse stuff. If I want to prove my identity, I won't prove it to all the different entities again. I will just prove it to one entity, like perhaps a bank or a government entity, or maybe even a Facebook. And they will establish that I am over 18 or I'm in the United Kingdom, wherever I've gone. So why would a consumer use it? Because it's more like, why would they not use it? It'll just happen. It's not going to be a sudden switch. It's not going to be, here's the sales pitch. It's just going to be gradually, you're going to get more control of stuff. You'll have more of an expectation that your match day tickets or your music tickets or whatever, you have an expectation that actually you can use them in lots of places. To buy or sell, or as an inventory, or to get your coupon discounts. That's going to be the change. It will take 10, 15 years, but it's just going to be the way things focused are going to be more on us.
Awesome. And last but not least, Greg, there's probably not that many pools of words to describe what the metaverse is now, but if there's anything else you can add just for the audience, that'd be grand. I think you're on mute.
Sorry, guys. I think one thing that we haven't touched on yet is that in reality, there is no way to just call anything the metaverse, right? There isn't just this one monolithic place you can go to or visit or engage in. Metaverse is, as some have said, more of a concept of interactivity, of being with like-minded people or brands that you like in an immersive experience. And it can take the form of a games platform. It can take the form of a 3D, headset that you wear, but it's really as simple today as going to a URL and entering into a platform, not unlike what Virtua has built and others have built, where you can have a little bit more of an immersive experience with like-minded people and community, and use digital assets that you've acquired. And one of the things we haven't mentioned yet, but I think is fundamental to everything related to a metaverse and Web3, is that it's all on the blockchain. And the fact that it's on the blockchain allows for some of the activities that have been mentioned previously. I'm owning things and I can verify that I own things. And by nature of those digital assets, maybe in the form of NFTs or tokens, I carry those with me in a digital wallet. And that wallet comes with me, and the proof of who I am and my credentials comes with me as I go to websites, as I go to metaverse experiences. And that validates who I am. It validates what I hold in my wallet, which can unlock and do things for me in these environments. So by nature of being on the blockchain, by nature of having a digital footprint in a wallet that travels with me, that affords me the opportunity to participate in different experiences with brands that I love and communities that I love. So, if you think about why would I care? Someone mentioned it's just going to be a natural evolution, not unlike Web 2 to Web 1 to Web 2, natural evolution. Your friends were doing things, you were hearing about things, and there was community being formed. So there's curiosity, there's the sense of community. I want to be with like-minded people where they're spending their time digitally. And then there's this idea of exclusive experiences based on digital assets that I have. And all of that feels like fandom rewards and loyalty to me, where I'm engaging with brands, communities that I love, and they're giving me something back based on my fandom. And that fandom can be proven based on assets in my wallet.
Awesome. So we've talked about sort of what is the metaverse. Moving on to the brands and how do they get involved in it? I know for a fact when I sort of joined this space 9 months ago, there's a there's a huge amount to get an understanding of. So, Jawad, if we sort of kind of kick off with you, as we know, there are a number of brands exploring the metaverse spaces with the likes of Sandbox and Roblox. But as we also know, there's a huge number of different metaverses to sort of kind of choose from. Where should agencies and brands even begin when it comes to building out a Web3 strategy to ensure sort of kind of mass market adoption?
Well, they've got to look at it really carefully. I mean, like we've been working together with Greg, and one of the choices so we were doing Kevin Hart, and when we were going through that, one of the choices for their team was who should they go with and why should they go with it. And so it's really difficult when it comes to teams because they are generally not that savvy when it comes to this whole space. And so there's got to be an element of what you always do is where you trust the people that you work with and there's good chemistry. You can't understate that in any business environment. But by the same token, you've got to be able to deliver. And so when it comes to brands, it's really a case of having first of all, trying to shortlist who's got the audience, who's got the most daily active users, and then balance that with who's going to give you the best experience for your brand. Because if you look at different metaverses, the metaverse is one metaverse and it's all multiple different islands connected together, which are different experiences. And Sandbox is one, Decentraland one, some space, etc. They all keep going. But the experience that you have in each one is quite different. One is very Lego, one is very blocky, one is low fidelity. And as a brand, which will give the best experience to your user, which really represents your brand well? If you're a high fashion brand, do you want a Gucci bag that looks like a Lego block, for example, or do you want something which is higher resolution? When we did Kevin Hart's activation, it was like a metaverse room which ran in a mobile browser, which meant the maximum amount of users could access it, and had video as well as design around it. And it was working with a wallet which is trustable, and with a team who could do the wallet side in a way that was very seamless and frictionless. So you got to consider fidelity, ease of use, ease of access, and then if the brand and the team can represent you well enough, and then do they have the audience today, and will they have the audience tomorrow? You've got to take a strategic view towards it, and especially in the last 1 year, Rory, you and I have seen it. It's been a roller coaster in terms of the story of brands. They didn't understand what it was till they thought they understood what it was, and then everyone gave them lots and lots of massive checks, and some actually focused on their fans, some took the checks. And now the market's completely changed. So now, like we saw what happened with Premier League and a few others, things get rolled back because people realize that these deals don't make sense anymore. People got sort of caught up in the euphoria of what was happening, but now brands have gone through that 5-year cycle in the space of 9 months. So I think a lot of them are just digesting it. So I think there's a lot of things happening.
Tim, strategy is Capital Block's bread and butter. What can you add to that?
Yeah, I think fundamentally, the third party kind of aspect and taking that big check just ultimately does not work at all. I mean, we speak a lot to the football clubs around this. And I think even if you do some kind of basic maths around some football clubs and you actually look at the numbers, I think what a lot of clubs, brands, organizations have to realize is this is a really, really long game that we're playing. I mean, Alex just touched on it. The metaverse isn't going to be a quick fix. This could be something in the next 10, 15 years that is going to create mass adoption. And that's exactly the same with sports fans. That's exactly the same with Web3 and NFTs. I think if you look at the feedback or you look at the negative comments of any football club that announces an NFT, under whether it be it Barcelona, be it Liverpool, be it Everton, the negative messages underneath that just show that the fans really aren't there. And so if a football club is going to go and do a deal with a third party, I think even from the moment they sign it, fundamentally it's under pressure, because even if you took an average football club, let's say that's got 1 million fans, out of that 1 million fans, I would probably say around 10% are really interested in Web3 and NFTs, 10% of that would actually buy it, and then 10% of that, because of life, do buy it. So you've gone from 1 million fans to 1,000 fans in a very, very quick succession. And then that club is going to promote it as a sponsorship deal. So they're never going to over-deliver on the sponsorship rights, which is then the job of the third party to convert a fan base that isn't interested, and then that company has to really focus on revenue to try and match that sponsorship deal. And let's even say it's 500,000. That means they've got to sell either 1,000 NFTs at $500, which is a lot for the average person, or they drop it to $100, but they've got to find an extra 4,000 people that aren't interested in NFTs. So what clubs and brands really need to look at is they have to look at strategy internally, and they have to be willing to take time, put resources into it, realize that they need to build education, they need to build a long-term vision, and a lot of things which are happening in real life now. And we focus on sports, it's our niche at Capital Block, but if you look at rewards, memberships, fan engagement, anything like that, all of that already happens in the real world. So what you've got to then go and educate your fans and talk to them, which most brands and clubs do not do. Talk to your consumer and your audience and tell them kind of why you're doing it, why this is interesting, and then add good utility being a reward for that. And there's no one size fits all. And that's kind of a bit of a problem in this space, because you've seen the huge kind of mainstream media came from PFPs, which is profile pictures, which is Bored Ape Yacht Clubs and this and that. But that was created very much for a tech-based audience that believed and loved blockchain. And it was focused on them owning something on blockchain, whereas ultimately the football fans or the sports fans or the brand fans of the consumers don't necessarily have that same mindset as that original tech audience that were buying Bored Ape Yacht Clubs and those original Crypto Kitties and Crypto Punks, those original projects. So without strategy and long-term vision and knowing that it's maybe 1,000 people you're going to turn, maybe 500 people you're going to turn in the first 6 months, year, that's okay, but build it for the long term and build its strategy, because it will change and it will move. But if you run after revenue and if you run after money, you're going to be disappointed as a brand. You're then going to put pressure on the third party that you're working with. They're going to be focused on revenue. And then ultimately, it's going to be your consumer or your fan that is left with a bad taste in their mouth. And that's not only bad for your consumers, but it's then bad for the Web3 industry as a whole. And it's a narrative we really need to change and move away. And education is the key to doing all of that.
Definitely. And we'll come back to utility in a second. But Greg, just one for you here. As Jawad mentioned, we partner with you guys at Moonwalk on the Kevin Hart activation. You, just like a lot of us here, speak to a lot of brands, new clients on a daily basis. What trends are you seeing from brands about entering this space? Sort of what concerns are they showing, and how can their concerns be diluted?
Yeah, look, I think some of what Tim was just saying is really important, and that is a lot of marketers, as they're looking at metaverse experiences, they go right to audience and they think, how big is the audience that I'm going to go tap into? So what platform do I need to go to so I can get near the biggest audience? We had people reaching out to us and saying, well, if I'm going to build something in a certain metaverse environment, where should I buy land and build my metaverse experience? Because how much foot traffic am I going to get? And they're just missing the entire point because they're thinking very Web2 audience related. I think it's more interesting to, and again, a small user base, but bring them into a branded experience where you're just taking them to a website that is a metaverse experience, and they can easily kind of engage there. Maybe they log in with an email address. They don't have to log in with a Web3 wallet, and they can get something for being there. And so experiences like exclusive content, fandom, rewards, maybe I'll go into a metaverse environment, and because I spent some time there, I'm gifted an NFT that then gives me some type of utility over time. So I think you have to think my own user base. You have to think which platform, as Jawad said, is right for you based on the experience that you're trying to do with your users. And I continue to think that the metaverse is the end game. And we said it now, 10, 15 years, could be 7, whatever, but it's not today. And so if the end game is these immersive experience where we're going to be using these platforms instead of the platforms that we have in Web 2, our focus right now is getting our brand clients to build what we call the building blocks. And that is get your consumers familiar with owning digital assets in the form of NFTs and tokens. Get them familiar with what a wallet is and what a wallet can do for them. Get them thinking about new forms of fandom and engagement in the form of digital assets, which they will then use when you bring them to your metaverse environment. But if you start with people with a metaverse environment and throw Web2 users in with no concept of digital asset ownership, fandom, loyalty, rewards associated with those assets that they hold, they're going to miss the point of what you're trying to achieve. So we're experimenting, and I recommend to all of our brand clients, there's modest ways to experiment today, low cost, but do the work to do the building blocks and educate, as Tim said, educate your fans as to why you're doing this and what's in it for them. Move them along a journey. Don't just go invest in some big metaverse experience and expect everyone to show up, because they won't. You have to kind of ease them along the way.
No, super interesting. And just sort of kind of taking it from a different angle, Alex, you come from a gaming background. What correlations can you sort of see with this new Web3 world in comparison to, I suppose, when gaming first sort of hit our TV screens? And how did this sort of games world reduce the skepticism and obviously now sort of massively adopt the mass market?
The irony here being that the gaming community in the West absolutely hate NFTs. So I'm just going to step back a little bit also to what Greg was saying about time. I spoke at an event at Arsenal Football Club 2 weeks ago, funny enough, about sports and NFTs and the issues that football clubs have and so on. And we had a really interesting panelist there who worked on the Olympics and Commonwealth Games. And he said, and I can't remember the exact wording, but essentially it takes about 7 years for like a technical, or pretty much a technical innovation to actually get somewhere. Once it's think of it as hitting product market fit. So Bitcoin, if you want to put it into crypto terms, came out in 2009, give or take. 7 or 8 years later, it really hit the mainstream in 2017, or rather as crypto. It had little bits before them, but that's when it really hit. NFTs have actually been around a few years already. But the reality is NFTs only really hit the mainstream during COVID, and that, like, the technology-wise, it just was not even remotely ready. In 7 years' time, the technology will be better, but much, much more importantly, the kids and the youngsters and the students who've grown up faffing about with all this stuff, not quite knowing what they're doing, programming things, swapping, trading. 7 years' time, they'll be 7 years older. They'll have 7 years more income, and they're also already completely comfortable. So as you come out with products that use this technology, those people will already be used to it. If you want to step back towards looking what happened to the game industry, when I was born, but before I was playing games in the 70s, we had the early arcade machines, and you had pinball machines, but even before that. My generation, the early 80s and mid 80s generation, I was using 8-bit computers and 60-bit computers. But at my school, we had a careers day, and I was told, don't try and get a job in computer games because they're just a fad. And probably about 7 years later, there I was running a games company. So again, that's kind of 7 years thing again. It genuinely is about time, but what you're really looking at is who is using it. What age are they, and how are they interacting, and how comfortable are they, and what are they doing? Is it something that can come back if you were looking at how the market has changed? And you look at the age groups of people in crypto. People in crypto are young. I mean, most of us here anyway are the exception. People are really young. I work with people who are basically they are teenagers. I interacted with all sorts of people who are anything from like 16 through to 25. And many of the entrepreneurs, although there are some older experienced ones, many of them, and many of the engineers, and many of the artists, they're in their 20s and younger. That's crazy, actually. So as this technology matures, as we as consumers get more used to these things being in the media, and our apps starting to use it, you're going to see that age group grow up, and they don't care that property is digital. My generation, my contemporaries in the game industry do not get it, which is ironic because we sell skins all the time, but they don't get it. They just know what sells. But the generation who are coming through crypto, which it will be the metaverse generation. They're completely comfortable with doing everything on their iPad. They're completely comfortable with their phone. Property to them is digital. It's completely fine. They can mix physical and digital absolutely fine. So the thing to learn is it's not so much actually from the game industry. It's actually just looking at technology generally. Look at how technology is being used and don't try and predict everything, because you can't do it. You will get it wrong. What you can do is you can spot a trend. And I spotted this, which is why I got in and stayed in crypto. There was something innovative about it. We didn't quite know what, we didn't quite know it was going to work, and we still don't. But it keeps hitting. Every few years, it keeps coming back. It keeps coming back. It keeps coming back. And it keeps coming back bigger and better. And every time it's younger audiences coming in as the new users. But also I've noticed, particularly around this NFT generation, an awful lot of them were around in 2017. An awful lot of the creators were around in 2017, and the entrepreneurs. They didn't understand it then. They've often lost money then. But they came back 4 years later when they saw it back again, and they started doing stuff because they were totally okay with that. And I think if you're a brand, just stepping back into brands, and you're looking at this, you're always looking to attract the next generation, the youngsters. What are they going to do? Now, it is too early for the vast majority of brands to do anything significant using Web3 tech and within Web3 metaverses, certainly. It's too early, but you can do experiments, which I think is what Greg was talking about. You can do experiments. You can learn about the environment. You can learn about the audience. You can learn the technology side and learn about the good creators within it. And do those low-cost experiments, and don't see it as a way to go and make lots of money right now, because you're probably not going to. You should be seeing it as a learning opportunity and a PR opportunity. So going back to sports and what Tim was talking about, we've seen a lot of people in sports, like whether it's football clubs or big brands, basically trying to monetize, even when they think they're not. Like, Liverpool Football Club did a terrible job. They were trying to do stuff partly for charity, but really they were looking at money, and it doesn't work. What we need to do at this stage is give things away, make interactive experiences, and have NFTs be part of that, have different metaverses be part of that. It doesn't have to be a financial context, because a financial context will grow out of it. Just like social media, a few years ago, no one knew anything about social media, no one knew what to make of it. But it was a PR opportunity. But that grew into other opportunities, and that grew into major monetization opportunities and major marketing opportunities. So crypto and Web3 and metaverses, all these kind of things, they're just in that first stage where you've got to learn to understand them. And as the technology improves, and as regulation improves, which is holding us back as well, as we get more, as it becomes easier for us to do it on our phone natively, which isn't there yet, then you will find it becomes easier for brands who've been exploring to actually take advantage of what they've learned and start bringing their things to a wider audience, to extend their brand awareness, to get more people buying or sharing their brand. And it will be done through digital property. That's my expectation, but it will take a few years.
Awesome. Now I know we are 1 minute from time. Are there any questions from the audience? And if not, then Tim, we have all been sort of one underlying sort of message that's been coming through has been about utility. You talk a lot about utility on LinkedIn and social. What is utility to you? Explain that to sort of kind of the masses. What does it mean for a brand to use or a user to use utility within this space?
Utility for us, be it a real life experience or be it a digital experience, is giving something to the customer and a reason for them to essentially purchase it. I think you look at, as we spoke about these PFP pictures, there was a different mindset when people were buying them. But if you're buying, let's say, a digital ticket, let's say to a sports event, you buy a digital ticket, you then get that ticket in real life. That can be seen as utility, but actually what you can then get is you go watch the game, and then you come back and your ticket on whichever, we would say, your own platform for a club has been updated with the score, the man of the match, and that then kind of turns into a collectible. So that could be classed as a utility. So it's a collectible digital product that you have, or it could be that you get access to some exclusive content, or you get access into a certain club, or you get maybe you buy an NFT and then of, let's say, of your football club, whatever it may be, and then that is by getting that NFT, you then get airdropped some other NFTs that put you into rewards or competitions or a membership or anything like that. So utility for any brand is hugely, or sports club is hugely important. It's a reason, one of the reasons why people want to purchase that NFT. But what you have to think about from a sports club is, don't just say, oh, well, buy this NFT and then we'll give you a football shirt. But you're selling the NFT at $500 or $1,000, where you're like, actually, I could just go and spend £80 and buy a normal football shirt and not have to buy that NFT. Think about the reason of why you're releasing that utility, and think about why it's different to the other products that you've got, and think about the audience that you are speaking to. As we've had a theme throughout this, it's a younger, digital-centric audience. So let's engage with that and understand their desires and needs, which is different maybe to an older demographic sports fan. Think about the digital utility, the digital rewards, and use that to then reward them and enhance their experience into this Web3 space.
Mate, thanks for that. Last but not least, I'm going to throw you all on the spot here, just quickly. Greg, if there's one brand that's done it right so far, who has nailed it?
There is not one brand that's done it right, because there's not one thing to be done. So there's just no bar to just say.
Who set the bar at the highest level then?
So on some level, anyone who's done large events in Roblox has done some really cool stuff, because they've experimented with a virtual kind of environment and brought a big audience there, and they've come in. Then you've got brands that have done things with NFTs, and Nike certainly is at the top of the list, and you'd have to put Adidas up there as well, but very much focused on a Web3 audience. I've yet to see, and we see some that are building right now, and we think Kevin Hart's probably one of them, and there's some others in entertainment, but I've yet to see major endemic audiences be pulled into a Web3 environment yet, and we think that's the next phase. And all of that hinges, as Tim was saying, around things like fandom, loyalty, and rewards, things that consumers are very used to, except now they're going to own their status in the form of a digital asset, as opposed to just being part of a community from a loyalty or reward standpoint.
Cool. Alex, which brand?
To be honest, I'm just going to back what Greg said up. I mean, I think Nike have done very well, but Nike basically did it by buying a company, and they bought in that expertise, which is great. So that's Nike bought a company called Artifact. But yeah, again, I think it's, we've seen some individual things that are interesting. I think it was the Australian Open. They did a really interesting NFT project where there was some interaction or experience based on where the tennis ball landed on the court and stuff. And I think we're going to see some really interesting experiments like that. But again, I think it's too early. I think, although we've seen some interesting stuff from some of the larger fashion brands, it's still very, very experimental, and there's still a lot to be worked out. And just to add, also, I have been preaching for ages, basically about what Tim has said about ticketing. People always talk about tickets as we should have NFT tickets because they'll be great, but there's lots of issues with that. But the best thing about tickets is their memorabilia. I do not have a record of all the football matches I've been to, and I've been to hundreds, if not thousands. I would love a ticket for that. And I'd love to have a digital big piece of memorabilia, like a POAP. I'm waiting for a brand to really understand that and to really bring that mainstream. And it's inevitable, because that fandom that results from that will have value, social value, collectible value, personal value, maybe financial value. So that's what I'm looking for, and I haven't seen it yet.
You'll see it soon, Alex.
Pending. Guys, I can't see any questions in the chat, and we are actually 5 minutes over time. Thank you all very, very much for giving up 30 minutes of your time to sort of bring the world of Web3 to the masses and educate us very smartly. Thanks for your time, and we'll catch up with you all soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, guys, for sharing your insights today. And thank you, everyone, for attending today's live session. And on behalf of Disruptive Focus and Virtua, have a great day ahead.